Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 36 of Illium, our modded CS1 build. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Last episode we made big strides towards completion of downtown, with the Brutalist Plaza lying on the very edge of the city centre by a new sunken highway system. Moving on from this today, looking at the nighttime view over downtown Illium now, there's kind of one last gaping hole that we'll be filling today, bringing very much an end to the downtown phase. There's a few spaces I want to adjust, but this is very much the last major build of downtown Illium. And I asked you guys for suggestions, thoughts and feelings on this spot, for which the overwhelming consensus was sports, arts, museums and parks. So we'll reference the City of Arts and Sciences in Valencia today, alongside a few other places around the globe, as we add in lots of very extravagant unique buildings, green space and some richer, smaller homes on this hillside, which will continue to contribute to the real collection of unique builds we have that make up the central park of downtown Illium. So happy Monday to you all, and welcome back to CS1, everyone. So with today's build, let's start by just wrapping up some road frames here. We have this little local road that's going to essentially serve as a bit of a frontage toward the highway. Now I want to use some of the Korean luxury low density homes today as well. A bit of a shout out to Harry for this idea, both in the comments and on the live stream. And thank you for all the comments on that last episode as well, or the episode where I asked you for ideas of what was going to sit here. It was when we did this episode. And it was a pretty unanimous decision as well, just to have a big artsy district here. I think it'd be a chance for us to use some of the more quirky, unique buildings as well, including the Opera House. Super, so that'll basically give us a bit of a boundary for this area. Now, given the fact we're on a hillside here, we're going to have to do some terrain prep, especially with such big, unique buildings. I think I'm going to dig out a layer here and just begin a fairly gradual tiering system. Not for it to be too obnoxious, I don't want it to be this rigid, if you like, but at least just preparing a bit of land where we can develop something today. So I think with the terrain today, just bear with it, it's going to be pretty awful before it even starts to look remotely good. So most of this interior I think is going to be pedestrianised. I think I have a bit of an idea as to how I want this to sit with each layer, so let's run through this process here. So we'll grab some of our unique buildings. I think starting with the Opera House, which this asset is taken directly from Valencia, by the way, if you're wondering, in the City of Arts. We've checked this place out on live stream quite a few times before. And immediately that's already very apparent, isn't it? Bearing in mind the sight line from the interchange here today as well. Spoke about that a few times before. Just how important these sight lines are to development already. That's so striking, isn't it? Start bringing more pedestrian road up. Possibly featuring heavy retaining wall action today. And just here around the back, I'm going to bring all surrounding nodes down to the same height as the building. And then with these two, we can drag them out a little bit, giving us another little platform for our next unique building to sit here. And then let's line up our next pedestrian road in the grid frame of those existing streets we just put down. And then let's go for another quirky museum asset here. We'll go for the Africa Museum this time, the Royal Museum. Now, off the sides, I guess, of this central column, that's going to develop with all the unique attractions on it. I have quite a distinctive vision of how I want it to play out, so I almost want it to sort of break out into garden, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. So as we create two blocks here, what I would like is, I think, just regular vanilla pathway. I almost want this to just snake and create a bit of a pattern. A bit of a landscape garden vibe. I think the parallel tool mode, if we just expand that off the original design, it saves us having to draw it ourselves. And we'll keep this uniform across the park because I'm going to want the same visual, so we'll say a 30-meter parallel function. And then I'm going to send it off in different directions as it meets these nodes. So let's go for 180 degrees here. And then likewise this one can curve probably down into those residential buildings I mentioned. Which are going to sit off of these little local roads here. So we'll prepare them their own entrance into the park. And we'll of course allow these to connect so they can transition between the two layers. And then really heavily landscape the interior of these park belts here, lots of bush lining. And we can probably squeeze in some other parky themed assets alongside the road here as well if it's not too much of a pain with the terrain. And just by finding a spot to move this off, we can almost blend that in to the park space, and we'll do this in a few instances as well. Especially with park buildings, probably tropical gardens as well would be suited here. Let's have maybe this one over this way. Again, we'll do something similar this side with the pathways too. So a lot of very extravagant designs, overly landscaped if anything is the vibe we want here today. With this in, let's carry on with the museum vibe. We definitely want lots of museum and artsy kind of district buildings here. So with that in mind, we'll actually grab a real museum and we'll have the art gallery here, which is one of my favourite assets. Now this is going to blend really nicely with this idea we have of moving these pathways together because this is surrounded by concrete. And we can actually keep that connected. I actually wonder, just because of the shape of this asset. Do we want to keep it actually dead central? Just give us quite a nice emergence out the back of the snake, doesn't it, for lack of a better phrase? Yeah, okay, we'll go for that. I'd also like to stick a possible plaza out the front of this as well. I'm just going to push it back into the stairs. Obviously it does want a park area, but this will be all pedestrianised in a second anyway. Although I have just remembered to turn money back on after the live stream last week. Yeah, so we'll use the park asset, but just slightly fused into the front, which gives us a really nice frontage for the bit of the stairs and the art gallery, doesn't it? You could repeat that as well if you wanted to. Might even try that. Just to essentially just duplicate that pattern 3 times on either side. Yes, I'm very happy with that actually. So grab all 3 buildings, then just pull them up to the road. And then from this is where the terrain is going to start being a pain. But we will use some retaining walls today. I don't mind some height, but as little as that brown cliff texture as I can afford, really. But what I do want to happen, because out the back of this asset, they'll actually walk from it. So if you leave pathways near it, they'll use them. Even in vanilla as well, they'll do that. I actually wonder if we can do some sort of funky tunnel here, some pedestrian underpass that actually connects into this space here. I'm going to try that. Bring it up to here, just to utilise the terrain a little more. So we'll come underground. We'll do... Let's say that. How do we feel about that? It needs to be lower, but I'll do that in a second anyway. Now let's just bring this out on a regular elevation. As it comes down here, that shouldn't be too hard to blend in. This one down here will just pop underground to sort out. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll bring some rocks and whatnot and shape the keys and the retaining walls around this area. Also got a lot of people walking down here as well. Maybe a little bit of a switchback staircase coming down the pathway here. I'm going to switch to an actual pathway for this. Choose amusement park path for this. And we'll do 6, 2, and then 6. And then we'll connect that in. And then can probably just get a nice gradient pattern with a touch of network multi-slope. Just from top to bottom. There we go. And then a little bit of soften. Should just take some of the sting out of it for us. I think rocks and other little formations are going to do a world of good for us today. We could even do some stair IMT on this as well if we wanted to. I'll be happy with that, I think. We're going to need service points, so we want to consider that. We do have some nearby. I wonder, is this massively overloaded, this service point? like barely even used at all actually. Yeah, okay. How's that public transit doing over here? The buses are actually pretty full. Although this is the airport to Central Park one, they're all very busy actually. Let's meet you the double-decker airport bus. It's quite a busy line, that one. Probably with all the park attraction here that's drawing people in. I wouldn't mind featuring maybe some more of the more extravagant park assets in today's park as well. We'll see what we can get in. The Opera House is really the eye draw though today, isn't it? I wouldn't mind some as well, just kind of like off the central column to discuss some initial further asset placements here. Just a fun little note here. Everyone who wants to walk here is all coming this way because it's basically the only way into the park for them. So kind of forcing them to use my perfectly parallel pathways, which is turning out a treat. Fantastic. Love this. I'm already very busy. I'm really loving this aesthetic here. To say the Fuse Park Life fountains are a big hit today. Either way, I think we're going to stick the Theatre of Wonders down here. This unique building right here. For which we'll do... Again, I wanted it slightly on an angle. Now, we have used this one before, but I don't mind duplicating unit buildings. We might as well while we have the ability. And now we have a position for that. Let's just go ahead and hook that straight in to there. Again, with the secondary node dragged to the height of the building, just so we get the flatness to work with here. So I guess I'll use it to create a bit of a boundary of some sorts. We get in... This is probably retaining wall building here, I think. To box that building in. And then I'm going to give the whole build a bit of a forest line here, so I now know where to include my low density housing here. Bring this around, so anything basically on the outer edge of the forest that can just become our Hearts of Korea housing that I want to use for this area. I think I'll even clear some forest here on the outer edge of the highways for some residential homes. Let's bring in those Hearts of Korea assets. And we can filter just via a tag, a filter here. Go for DLC, and we want to grab Hearts of Korea content creator pack. And there's a few of these assets we can use. This one, and this one. I think I probably like mass repetition. These apartments are also quite nice, but I could have a few of these here. Having relatively cool views of this big central park from the balconies might be quite nice. But I'm not sure. They probably more belong over in that area, I think. Maybe we'll save those to blend down from our high density homes here. Maybe a couple of these here. Very versatile park, Hearts of Korea. You get tons of different zonables with it, and also some of the best unique buildings in the game. They tier really nicely, don't they, as they step up from each other. Because you've got all these angles here. This would also be a great Sims build as well, wouldn't it? Looking for some house inspiration. I would like that. Yeah, I like this. You do get somewhat dramatic views of the infrastructure over here, although it is, I guess, slightly more industrial behind the house. Let's keep these running in a ring around the edge of the road. I imagine these towards the edge are probably going to start suffering with a bit of noise pollution from the museum itself. But the only connection I'm looking to make here is between this section on the edge of the building, whilst maintaining as much of a curve as possible. Yeah, I really like that aesthetic. Don't they just make such a nice, like, apartment block visual? This is actually low density housing as well, by the way. I should absolutely include these assets in my medium density apartmentage tag. Getting a few errors in Illium today. Yeah, this one here, let's add that to medium density for sure. Probably some of these as well, actually. There's yeah. Sweet. So we'll have those there. And then I do want the other luxury mansion looking ones to also feature heavily here too. We'll have these with some local road network. I'm also planning to use some of these assets, although I might mix and match with green cities for a bit of a gated community build the other side of the highway from here. Let's have that in there, and then just fairly sporadic roads here, not after anything massively uniform. Yeah, just a few little local roads to maximize zoning positions, really. That's the same height, and then essentially spam these retaining wall career assets as much as we can get them in anyway. Which I think once this is all in, will even start to look a bit like an art installation itself, you know? They're such unique looking assets. Especially if you start spam repeating these ones, you get some really unique visuals. Like a Korean row home aesthetic almost. These are also very nice for apartment buildings. Go ahead and add that to our medium apartment tag. Happy for some fusing to take place here. Just with the arrangement of these homes. You could almost make that look like one continuous home, couldn't you? If you wanted like a mansion aesthetic. Just if you know, if you're going to fuse the buildings like that, maybe. Let's excuse some window clipping. But you could certainly create the visual of like multi-layered mansions, couldn't you? With a little bit of Move It and Hearts of Korea. I think that might be something we explore in the gated community episode. So don't be afraid of any clipping with these assets, because you can probably make it work. And then once we have those in, just basically wrap this up with Illium forest very densely. And we'll have a few little pockets of this, what you would imagine to be extremely rich hillside suburbia by this very expensive park here. And of course, where our pathway comes through from that park, we will connect in a couple of pathways for them. Nice. Node controller in the middle there as well. Really open that up. I think I can even envision one of these little park directional signs here. Just telling people, you know, the obvious massive park area is available dead ahead. Be able to go in. And then we'll have pretty much this visual around the base. But I think these Korean homes blend in really nice with the extravagance of the park, don't they? I think that's it's a really good shout from Harry. Thank you so much for that idea, mate. I think I'm going to really enjoy having these here, especially with the discovery of fusible mansion spices available with this pack as well, which really helps hide the terrain layers we're playing with here. So, huge fan of this. But either way, I think we're at a good point for some detailing already. There's only so much we can really do here that doesn't require an immense amount of time lapsing to figure out all of this retaining wall spice. But otherwise we're tight all together with retaining walls where the landscape is a little too harsh. This probably won't smoothen out. This will need a key on it. And probably likewise with the back of the apartments crawling uphill here as well. I'm also going to do a restart as well, see if I can get rid of that error. It's quite annoying, it keeps popping up. Only when the simulation is running does that happen. And then tons of landscaping to do here. We'll figure out a service point. I'm probably just going to use the same one up here, I think, because this one's not really overloaded at all with what it has to do down here. And did we put it in here? No, this is all regular road, isn't it? Yeah, but either way, grab yourself some snacks and we'll be right back with Mega Hillside Park detailing time-lapse. Okay, everyone, let's have a look over the final weird build of the Central Park area of Illium. To just comment on that, this has easily been one of the most strange collection of builds I think we've ever put together in CS1. Basically starting from this point here at the start of the Central Park, all up through this space. Let's grab the gentrified area as well, plus the Brutalist Plaza. And then just all of this. Possibly excluding the residential, but it's just colourful green park build one after the other. And it's just been an absolute treat to build. I've really enjoyed putting this whole area together. Over the worst terrain in the city as well, by no means an easy build, but we get stuck into it. Down here, the Hearts of Korea housing has mass repeated in many different instances across the hillside suburb, including up to a new bridge over here. Of course, I always forget a pillar, don't I? You know, I've just moved the train pillar down there as well. And then instantly forget this one, of course. So new Hearts of Korea homes also continue down here, and with that retaining wall that they're sat on, really helping to set them in as well. Also upgraded to sound barrier, so they don't suffer as much over this way. But we also had someone mention Madeira in one of the Portuguese islands, of how many bridges can layer in a certain space. And obviously, while we've not gone for major Madeira inspiration today, I can certainly respect lots of bridge networks crisscrossing through a mountain valley, which I think is something we'll continue to see more of in this quite unique shaped part of the map, because there's more opportunity to do it pretty much all the way down here. As we start building out this way, which we'll talk more to as to what's going to happen in the next phase of the project. Either way, into the park, dropped in a Media Labs building. Now don't forget, this for me is actually registered as residential, this building. It's been recoded. So it's the Trade School Media Lab, but it's high density residential, right? So we've got a few people showing out here, with some props outside of it. Really just as, again, another perhaps quirky technology museum within the park space. I think it fulfills that criteria, doesn't it? Or indeed, perhaps it could just remain as a public labs, maybe, you know, something associated with a university campus. Someone did also suggest another university campus here, which I really like the idea, but the fact we've got 1 and 2 of them right here, I think a third would have been a bit overkill. I think the third campus will probably be quite far away from here, if we build it at all, that is. So yeah, that was also a good shout. But we did manage to reference a little bit of university in here. Expanding concrete space at the bottom of stairs. With people sat in this really fun little area. The pathways now move all around it, both of which are getting use into a birch park, which have also expanded lots of birch tree in this area. Alongside a little Illium sign with observation decks, bringing us up to the Theatre of Wonders here, sat on a quay wall. And then this space opens up with carousels. Imagine you just come to this area for a day out with your family, wouldn't you? Family and friends. Opera house. Theatre. More of these Korean homes here as well on the bend, which I really love this aesthetic. I certainly need to start utilising Korean residential more. Very powerful assets in CS1 with some of the mods. So I think expect to see a few more of these assets in different repetitions as we carry on building out Illium. Pathways, and then more expanded trees from whatever assets sit around. Tropical garden parks here with pathways anchored onto their entrances, which is all very fun indeed. This comes up to a little cafe with skate park, again with the more awkward retaining walls placed in, well, I guess where the terrain was more awkward, I suppose. And then we also have a tunnel here, which is getting a nice little bit of use. People cutting back through to the park over there, and you can see the braid now. It's starting to get quite a nice bit of use through here. I wonder where you're all coming from, actually. I guess maybe down from the transit networks here. Yeah, I think a lot of them are walking down toward the monorail. Or crossing over for that metro further down. Of course, which is going to expand. The metro will, of course, carry on underground. And the monorail is running off the airport as well. So, I'm not sure what's going to happen with this monorail yet. Likely another monorail hub here as a town of some description develops. Beyond that, back in the park, we've also placed in some of the emerging history plazas. In a mass repetition at the front of the art gallery, which I'm a huge fan of. I really like how this looks. With the fused fountains at the front. And then more of this expanded concrete space up to the side of the building. And then of course it's all walkable around the back. Not sure if we'll see anyone. Yep, there you go, perfect example. So they do actually use the back of the building as well here. It's a really nice asset, the art gallery. I think also quite fusible, especially because of the stairs on it. You'd almost basically repeat this entrance on all 4 sides of the building if you duplicated it 4 times, which might be something to experiment with perhaps. Over here, the Spider Museum is now boxed in with stair keys down here, which are connected with pathways. I'm not sure if people are using them. Doesn't really look like it, which might be a waste of nodes. I might end up reclaiming them. There are pathways anchored in here. You can see the lamppost there, but it doesn't look like anyone's actually using it, so it might be a bit of a waste. But it is walkable, regardless of that. And then all the way up through here, more renewed history stuff, with the pictures, the courts appearing for the first time. You can rent one of these out for the day or for the hour, I suppose. I guess no one plays basketball for an entire day, do they? Unless it's some sort of basketball party, perhaps. And then anchored into the botanical garden over here as well, which links us back to that housing. Also over here, dropped in one of the Africa bird observation platforms, which is such a cool park asset. And then just expanded some detailing at the back. There was a little bit of a concrete patio here, so decided to just bring it around the side with some benches, comfy seats, tables and verandas and umbrellas, overlooking the botanical garden and the wider park and even the waters of Illium as well, with the airport. How cool. So yeah, just a nice little expansion of that asset, something to tuck into the corner. A little bit of a bar bistro dining area, if you like, where you can perhaps sample some of the birds you've just seen in a taster menu. And then the switchback is getting some nice use, also connected that into the key as well, of course. So they can walk along it back up to the next street level over here. Indeed, into another little eatery plaza. That takes you back into another park, which is pretty much the recurring theme for this entire bit of the city. It just, yeah. I had no idea what this bit of the hill would look like when we first started building Illium. But now that the last major build is in, yeah, it's really one of the most unique spaces in the city. Probably will remain the most unique district of the city, this central green park gem of Illium. It's really, really fun. If you haven't downloaded the save file, you can get it and come explore for yourself. And beyond that, speaking of the central park, there are still some holes left. We've got 1 here, and then 2 here, really. I do have plans for these 2. And for this as well, really. I think we're going to do a bit of a filling awkward space episode, because we've also got something of that description down here as well, where we've got some really narrow, thin coastline that's a bit nondescript. So I think we'll spend an episode here, and also filling these little remnants of development, if you like, that have been left over from previous builds. Particularly with this one here, I want to redesign the bow tie intersection. I'm going to keep the same traffic flow system in place, because it does work really nicely. But yeah, I just want to redesign it a little bit with the road hierarchy, because we've obviously upgraded the road through here. And then I also want to give this a big kind of over-the-top design as well, perhaps some repetitive plaza to briefly explore that idea together, because I do have a vision of what's going to happen here. Just want to grab perhaps the official park. I'm thinking possibly duplicating it. It actually fits and sits perfectly in the spaces between the road and the roundabout, so that's almost definitely confirmed that we're going to run with something like this. And then lots of landscaping up to this bridge, because it's all quite thematic, isn't it? With the approach into the central park. So I think this space probably deserves a little bit of a TLC in design, I think, as the city continues to grow. Moving forward, I'm not sure what we'll work on next time. I'm quite keen to build a racetrack. I think having access to this area over here might be the selling point for that, to build a racetrack here. We'll get stuck into that next episode, we'll see. There's a lot to do, as it turns out. Either way, thank you so much indeed for watching up to this point. A huge shout out to the YouTube members and patrons that bankroll these videos, with a roll call to our golden egg patrons: Casino, Spartan Angel, Michael W, Wolfo, Phoenix MD, Jamin, Great C, Bryce Johnson, Sean, and Trevor Larson. Thank you so much indeed for all of your incredible support. If you want to get involved in that, links down below to Patreon and Instant Game. They're always the best way to support the Cities 1 videos here. Thank you still so much for your continued support as we very much reach the end of Downtown Illium, which kind of marks, I guess, the start of, or I guess the middle of the mid-game for CS1, at least in my builds. When we reach this point when the Downtown project has been wrapped up, and we can now move into these outer line 25 tile builds where we can have a lot more fun and with different themes, and especially some farming coming up soon is pretty due as well, if not another major industrial build, perhaps a refinery or some description like that, or a major ore mine, some mega dirty industry perhaps. And please keep your ideas for builds coming down below. Enjoy the cinematics, and I'll shut up and leave it there. Let's thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.